The worst thing that ever happened to me happened at a hotel. I was making a cross-country drive. I won't say where exactly to, because I don't really think that's important to the story. All I can really tell you is that it was on a long and lonely cross-country highway. I had been driving quite a long time and late into the night as well. There weren't many cars on the road now, and the ones that were wouldn't turn off their high beams. It was a very lonely and tired experience. Each passing light hit my eyes in a rhythm, almost like a hypnotist, making me feel like I was in some sort of long and painful dream. I'm one of those people who likes driving at night because I make better time, but I was having way too difficult a problem with it this night. I eventually gave in and went to a motel. It was a bit of a run-down one. I didn't even like it at first, but who knows how much longer I would have been able to drive before I found another one. It was almost more like a movie theater ticket booth than a motel office. There was this glass booth, and I had to pass my credit card and ID underneath the glass. It was extremely weird. The man at the counter was kind of strange too. He kept giving me this weird look, and I could have sworn he was checking me out or something. I felt really dirty. When I finally got my key and went to the room, whatever dirt I felt, I definitely washed away right away. The room itself wasn't exactly dirty, don't get me wrong, but it did have this really weird smell. I checked the bed sheets and they seemed to be clean, which made me happy. The carpet was very old though. While it may have been vacuumed, I don't think that would get everything out, so I figured that must have been where the smell was coming from. The bathroom was relatively clean too, to my surprise, but something about the water smelled. At that point, I decided I was going to skip the shower instead. I got changed and got ready for bed. I thought I'd check out an hour or so of television and try to fall asleep after that. Yeah, I had been falling asleep on the road, but I always like to watch something on TV before going to bed in a new place. I was just about to fall asleep while watching TV, when I suddenly heard a knock at the door. I made my way over to the door, stumbling because I was tired. When I looked out through the peephole, I saw a rather large and nasty-looking man outside. He had to be 6'5", and I couldn't even hazard a guess as to his weight. He was visibly dirty. I can't even describe how gross he looked. I wasn't about to open the door for this guy. I did ask through the door though if I could help him somehow. Yeah, the manager told me I needed to come and get you and take you to the desk. He told me there was a problem with your credit card or something. It was very fishy. This was a motel. The manager should have just called me. I asked the guy why he hadn't done so. Apparently, the main phone of the desk was broken. He informed me that I had to come out to the desk right now because there was a big problem. I wasn't going to go outside though. I told the man to wait for a minute. I went over to my own portable computer, which I had connected to the motel internet. I pulled up the website for my credit card. When I did, it confirmed the money had properly gone through. I was about to check something else when the man began pounding on the door. "Sir, if you don't come out right now, I'm going to have to call the police." The man yelled at me. "You'll be arrested for trespassing since you didn't pay for this room." Well, if this guy was planning on attacking me or killing me or something, he really made a mistake getting so aggressive. I surely wasn't about to come out now, and his reasoning was pretty damn stupid. I went over to the door and made sure it was locked up tight. I yelled at the man to go away because I was calling the cops myself now. His response was shocking. "You called the police?" he yelled back, surprised and incredulous. "You really called the police? Sure, call those damn police then. All they're gonna do is arrest your ass. You're trespassing. You wanna go to jail? The only way you ain't is if you come out that door right now." I went ahead and called the police, while the man was still furiously pounding on the door. Apparently, they were already on their way, as the motel attendant and one of my neighbors had heard the ruckus and called them right away. I was going back to the door and told the guy the cops had already been called. We'd see who got arrested in the end. He didn't waste any time though. He ran off and jumped into the back of a pickup truck which then took off right away. When the police arrived, we gave them the full story. They found the guy and arrested him. Apparently, he was an ex-con and had served time for aggravated assault and attempted murder. I found out much later during the case, he had also been wanted and charged with murdering a motel guest in a neighboring state. He'd pretended to be a motel worker and demanded a woman come out of her room because her credit card didn't go through. She went with him, and he beat her badly. She died afterward. He was found guilty in our court and was taken to the other state. He was also prosecuted there and got a life sentence. I was going into the city for work. My company was sending me in for some training, and I was pretty excited. They were sending me to one of those high-rise hotels. I had never been in one of them before, so essentially it was an all-expenses-paid vacation to me. I had money for food and a little for entertainment as well. I was really excited that my hotel room was on a really high floor too. I had always wanted to be in one of those high floors of a building. When I got into the hotel, I was pretty impressed with the money that my company must have spent to get me there. I checked in and went to the elevator and came all the way to the 50th floor. I went into my room and immediately went to look out the window. I looked out onto the city. It was Las Vegas, by the way. Anyhow, I decided to go out and spend my first night hitting the casinos. I went out of my room and got on the elevator. When I did, there was only one other person in it. I guess I should feel bad about labeling this person immediately, but he seemed really filthy. I almost thought he was homeless at a first glance. He definitely didn't appear to be the type of person who could stay in such a nice hotel. Several times, this guy tried to start up a conversation with me. I was polite to him and gave him yes or no answers to most of them. He asked me if I was going anyplace in particular, and I told him I was going out to the casinos for the night. When he asked if I needed someone to help show me around, I gave him a surefire no. The guy immediately stopped talking, but even though we were the only two people in the elevator, he began slowly moving closer and closer to me. I tried to ignore him, pretend he wasn't there, but it didn't stop him from continuing to move in. Soon he was so close to me, I could practically feel his breath. I was dying, hoping this long elevator ride would finally end. It seemed it still had a while to go yet though. Thankfully, just when I was about to lose my cool and snap at this guy or something, the elevator stopped at a floor. The guy quickly shuffled away from me, verifying he was surely a creep. Thankfully, the couple that got on stayed on the elevator all the way to the bottom floor. No one else got on the entire time. When we got to the lobby, he followed me out the door and turned to walk the same way I did. I began walking faster, trying to get a head start on him. I was able to lose him in the crowded streets of Las Vegas. I felt a wave of relief wash over me when I did so. More than once when I was out enjoying myself though, I saw the man appear in the same casino I was. I wasn't sure he had seen me, and I wasn't sure how he was showing up at the same places each time. I would just try to lay low and even go to different casinos to lose him again. I wanted nothing to do with this guy. When I'd had enough of the casino browsing, I decided to go back to my hotel room and get some sleep. I kept a watchful eye around me and was happy I hadn't seen the guy even once on my way back. Happy, that is, until I got back to the hotel, only to see him already waiting in the lobby, seated on a couch right next to the elevators. He looked up when I approached the elevator, and his eyes lit up like he was excited. I went to push the button, just checking to see how he would react. He got up instantly. It was obvious he was waiting to get back on the elevator with me. I figured he must have been following me around until he realized it made more sense to wait in the place he knew I had to go back to, the hotel lobby. Well, there was no way I was gonna get into the elevator again with this creep alone. I went immediately away from the elevator and over to the lobby and complained to the desk clerk. I asked for an escort to my room. They not only got me a security guard to escort me, the guard also had a talk with the creep. He told him he was making me feel uncomfortable, and it would be better if he left me alone. He then made the man wait while he went in the elevator with me. I was there for a few days, and I did see the man again often, but he never tried to ride the elevator with me again, and he never tried to talk to me or anything. As a note, I tend to take way too many long drives. One of the reasons is that I really don't like staying in motels. I don't care how clean it is. In my mind, it's nearly impossible for a motel to be cleanly. That's no matter how they decide to take care of it. I don't know, sleeping in the same beds and sheets that tons of people would have used, the same toilets and showers that I would be using as well. I just can't deal with that sort of thing, so I try to avoid staying out altogether. I was driving home from college to visit my parents. Normally, the drive is 14 hours straight through. I basically have to get going right out of bed, and I only have an hour or so to visit with them on arrival before going to bed once again. On this particular trip the story happens on, though, I ran into a few things that halted my progress. First thing is I got a bit of a late start because we had a power outage in my dorm, and my alarm clock didn't go off because of this. I figured I could still make it, but I had never driven at that time. I had to go through a major city. I hit it right at the peak of traffic. My car was slowed to a complete stop at times. I had never experienced traffic so horrible, and before I knew it, I had lost 3 extra hours, bringing the grand total of time I was behind to 5 hours. I tried my best to make it up by driving fast and taking less bathroom breaks, but the time I was able to make up was minimal. I called my parents and let them know I was going to be showing up late. However, when my eyes began shutting on their own, I realized it would be too dangerous to keep driving. Caffeine was doing nothing for me, so I called my parents up again and let them know I couldn't get there until the following day. I was going to have to check into a motel. I tried looking for a chain motel. I figured at least those might be cleaner for some reason. However, I wasn't able to find one. Before it got too dangerous for me to drive any further, I picked the next one I was able to find. As I pulled up, I didn't exactly get a good impression from the place right away. I walked into the office only to find no one there. I rang the bell at the front desk and heard some noise coming from a room in the back. A man in his 40s came out from the room back there. I could tell he had been sleeping in the office. He kept looking at me in a way that made me very uncomfortable. He kept his face down toward the desk, but his eyes were looking straight up at me. He did this nearly the entire time I was checking in. I can't tell you how relieved I was when I finally got the key to my room and was able to go inside. For a motel that wasn't in a chain, the place was actually fairly large. I had to drive around to get to my room and parked right in front of it. I felt a little bit better about the experience once I got inside. It was about as clean as you could expect a room like this to be. Still, I couldn't bring myself to shower there. I hadn't brought my shower shoes that I usually used in the dorm. After I got ready for bed, I turned out the light and went to sleep. I was actually surprised how easily I fell asleep that night. I woke up a bit later, not exactly sure as to what had woken me up. I'm not one of those people who normally wakes up during the night. I tend to sleep like a log straight through. I assumed it was some sort of noise and waited to see if I would hear it again. I decided to just lay back down after a while. I slept for what seemed like a long time, but I was awoken once more. I noticed it had only been half an hour. Again, I wasn't sure what exactly had woken me up. There must have been something making some noise, but again, there were no noises when I tried to listen. I laid back down and this time stayed awake for a bit. It wasn't as easy to go back to sleep. I had been woken up twice already and was now unnerved. I'd had my eyes closed for a while. when I felt something. It wasn't much at first. It felt like a movement on the bed. I figured it was nothing until I slowly began feeling something pressing down on the left corner of the bed frame. It felt as if a person were putting distinct pressure right there. I opened my eyes and got up this time. I turned on the lamp, only to see the man, the one who had checked me into the motel earlier, was in the room with me. He didn't have a weapon or anything, but he was at the corner of the bed, staring at me. He had been trying to get into bed with me. That was when I realized he must have been what had woken me up the previous 2 times. It must have been because he was trying to get onto the bed quietly. I was horrified further by realizing the man must have been in the room the entire time while I had been sleeping. I'm not really that big of a guy, but I am in decent shape, and I was angry. I jumped out of the bed and grabbed the lamp off the table, threatening to beat the guy's ass. He seemed unsure of what to do and finally decided to flee from the room. I quickly used the phone to call the cops. The cops told me the guy had just gone back to the desk. Apparently, he'd also called the cops, saying he had an unruly guest that he needed thrown out. Turns out the guy had a previous record of doing some unsavory things, however, so the police believed me right away and arrested him. Eventually, I was allowed to go on my way. I went straight home, and I've never slept in a hotel ever again. This happened over 10 years ago, so excuse me if the details are a little bit fuzzy. When I was in high school, my friend Claire came to sleep over. We had made some plans to sneak out and hang out with some guys. Then one of them would drive us home after. We go out to our friend's apartment, have some fun. When around midnight, we decide it's time for us to head back. When we asked to be taken back, though, everyone said no, despite previously agreeing to do so. Everyone had gotten too drunk or too high to drive, so we eventually had to just start walking back. We would make some phone calls to see if anyone could pick us up and bring us the rest of the way there. My house was a good 20 minutes away by car on the highway, so there was no way we were walking all the way back together. The friend's apartment was toward the back of the complex, so we started making our way to the entrance area. We hadn't even gotten halfway there before a car started rolling up behind us. I was 15 or 16 at the time and very naive of the ways of the world. I wasn't too concerned right then, but Claire was a little smarter than me on this night. She told me we needed to start walking faster, so we did so. The car picked up pace right behind us. Again, she told me we really needed to start moving, so we started going as fast as we could. That's when the car pulled slightly in front of us, and 2 passenger doors opened up. 2 men jumped out. Realizing there was no walking faster to get out of this situation, she instructed me to run right now. She took off running and I followed behind her. She ran towards a group of parked cars and jumped behind a pickup truck. For a minute, we hoped and prayed we hadn't been spotted. This is where the details get kind of fuzzy. One of them must have gotten back in the car at some point, as there was now only one of them following us behind the truck. We heard a set of footsteps quickly approaching, and she indicated we now had to go into stealth mode. The man was on the other side of the car we were hiding behind, circling the truck and looking for us. We were slowly and quietly circling on the opposite side to avoid being spotted. It was almost like a scene from a video game. We somehow managed to do 2 or 3 circles around the vehicle without being detected, and by the grace of the gods, he gave up and went back to the car with his friends inside. This was our one shot to get away. She told me to run again, so we ran for what felt like an eternity. In reality, it was probably only 15 seconds though. We found the pool house area and found a spot to hide. We were hidden behind some fences and bushes, anxiously waiting to see if they'd discovered us. Their car pulls around to the pool house, and we're biting our nails hoping they don't stop and get out. The car slowly drove away though, and we realized we hadn't yet been spotted. We were safe for now. The cars circled around the apartment complex though, for hours and hours and hours. They were not giving up on looking for us. We were safe staying where we were for the time being, but we needed to find a way to get out of there. It was the middle of winter, and of course we were dressed to impress the guys we went to hang out with, so short shorts and revealing tops. We were absolutely freezing. Claire found a dirty, disgusting Captain America blanket that we huddled up under together while making phone calls to find anyone to pick us up. We tried contacting the guys at the apartment, but no one answered our calls. None of our other friends answered either. We felt completely alone and hopeless. Finally, around 5 a.m., someone answered and said they would come pick us up. The best news I had ever heard in my life. Our friend got to the apartment complex, but couldn't find the area we were hiding in. The group of men were also still constantly circling around, so there was no way we were coming out of hiding. We managed to figure out where our friend was at with a little deductive work, figuring out what building they were facing, what was in front of them, and what landmarks were nearby. We figured out where they were, and we had to make a run for it. We spotted their car and ran as fast as we could. We told them to speed off right now, and our friend took off toward the entrance. We passed the group of men on the way out as they stared behind us, and that was the last we saw of them. We made it back around 6 a.m., just in time to sneak back in without my parents ever knowing we had left. If Claire hadn't been with me that night, I definitely would have been abducted, possibly killed, or even worse. So thankfully, Claire and our friend really had our backs that night. But fuck you to the adult men we went to hang out with as teenagers. Especially fuck you to the guys who intended to harm us that night. On a happier note though, I'm now very diligent and aware of my surroundings. We washed the dirty blanket and shared custody of it for years after this encounter.